Assurance is a loop, not a certificate. What you proved last quarter can be false after the next model change. This AiVELabs episode gives product, engineering, risk, and quality teams a practical, vendor-neutral playbook for continuous assurance loop in 2026. Use a simple operating loop: assure, monitor, learn, and update. That loop keeps conversations concrete when stakeholders disagree about quality or risk. Why this matters: enterprises need a repeatable cycle linking pre-release assurance to production learning. Continuous loops reduce surprise audits and incidents. They also keep documentation and tests aligned with reality. Enterprises shipping AI into banking, insurance, healthcare, and digital operations cannot rely on hallway demos. Buyers, auditors, and internal second-line risk partners ask for repeatable methods, version artifacts, and clear ownership. If you cannot explain how you tested and what evidence you keep, you do not have AI quality, you have optimism. Core concepts come next. Do not memorize jargon, operationalize each idea into cases, metrics, and gates. Concept 1, assure. Run TEVV activities in gates before promotion. Capture evidence. In practice, treat this as a measurable property, define what good looks like, attach evidence, and track it across model, prompt, data, and tooling changes. Concept 2, monitor. Watch live signals and sample audits. Detect drift and harm early. In practice, treat this as a measurable property, define what good looks like, attach evidence, and track it across model, prompt, data, and tooling changes. Concept 3, learn. Turn incidents and hard cases into requirements and tests. Institutionalize learning. In practice, treat this as a measurable property, define what good looks like, attach evidence, and track it across model, prompt, data, and tooling changes. Concept 4, update. Refresh models, prompts, data, and docs under change control. Re-enter assure. In practice, treat this as a measurable property, define what good looks like, attach evidence, and track it across model, prompt, data, and tooling changes. Concept 5, cadence. Set weekly ops reviews and quarterly risk reviews. Cadence beats ad hoc panic. In practice, treat this as a measurable property, define what good looks like, attach evidence, and track it across model, prompt, data, and tooling changes. Concept 6, metrics of the loop. Track time to detect, time to contain, and % of incidents with new tests. In practice, treat this as a measurable property, define what good looks like, attach evidence, and track it across model, prompt, data, and tooling changes. Here is a real-world pattern. Setting: Government Digital Services team running a citizen-facing AI help assistant. After launch, they instituted a continuous assurance loop with weekly quality reviews. Hard cases from monitoring entered gold sets within 2 sprints. A model vendor change triggered reassurance before expansion. Public complaints dropped as the loop matured. Notice the pattern: define scope, run controlled tests, capture evidence, decide with named owners, and feed failures back into the next cycle. That is how AI quality becomes a system property, not a slide. Common mistakes slow mature programs. Mistake 1, treating launch approval as permanent assurance. Teams that skip this create silent risk that surfaces in production or audits. Mistake 2, monitoring without feeding learning into tests. Teams that skip this create silent risk that surfaces in production or audits. Mistake 3, updating models without re-entering the assure phase. Teams that skip this create silent risk that surfaces in production or audits. Mistake 4, having no cadence or loop metrics. Teams that skip this create silent risk that surfaces in production or audits. The antidote is discipline, small goal sets, explicit thresholds, change control, and monitoring that connects production incidents back to evaluation suites. Key takeaways for your team. Takeaway 1, run Assure's monitor learn update as a closed loop. Takeaway 2, set operational and risk cadences. Takeaway 3, measure loop health with response and learning metrics. Takeaway 4, reassure after material changes. Write these into your team wiki and release checklist so they survive staffing changes. Your next steps this week: schedule a recurring assurance review that includes monitoring samples and eval backlog. Then, define loop KPIs, detect, contain, and new test coverage after incidents. Keep the artifacts, prompts, datasets, scores, approvals so you can defend the decision later. Where this fits the AiQualtest method, learn the foundations with AiVELabs, practice with hands-on cases, and validate with governed evaluation evidence. Visit aiqualtest.com and learn.aiqualtest.com. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for weekly AI quality, evaluation, and governance episodes. Additional depth for practitioners. Treat continuous assurance loop as a controlled experiment. Version the inputs, freeze the environment where possible, record who approved exceptions, and rerun after every material change, model upgrade, prompt edit, retrieval index refresh, or tool permission change. Pair quality metrics with latency, cost, and safety signals so trade-offs are visible to product owners. When results regress, open an incident-style review even if the feature still looks fine in a demo. Governed teams prefer boring, evidence-backed releases over surprising wins that cannot be reproduced.